So it's no surprise the MCU has not been everyone's favorite franchise as of late, especially not compared to how well regarded the Marvel brand name was just a few years ago. With disappointing entries in the franchise like the tonally misguided Thor Love and Thunder,
Giant goats!
Oh, look at those! They are wonderful.
Anyway, it's not that serious. Jane, it's stage 4. I have how many stages? 4.
or the lackluster scripts for films like Ant-Man Quantumania or Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness,
Wanda, Black Bolt could destroy you with one whisper from his mouth.
What mouth?
Marvel is not exactly the titans of blockbuster storytelling that they used to be. While I'll be the first to admit the issues and flaws plaguing the MCU in its current state, like an oversaturation of content, or something as simple as turning in unfinished VFX work, maybe it's the optimist in me or the former film student of years past that was a self-proclaimed big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I don't think it's all bad. No, I don't mean Marvel still producing some quality TV projects like WandaVision or Loki, or even some of their better films like Spider-Man No Way Home or Shang-Chi. Of course, with the plethora of content they've been releasing, there's bound to be strong new entries into the franchise. No, what I mean is that as a whole, I don't think Marvel's Phase 4 and 5 have been complete dumpster fires. Sure, there's bad installments as previously mentioned, but there are certain elements of modern-day MCU that are, to put it simply, better. Hold on, before you chase me through the streets with pitchforks and torches, hear me out. I'm fully acknowledging that there are a lot of issues present in the MCU lately, and post-Endgame has felt very aimless and unfocused. But with that being said, in a change of pace from the current discourse of MCU discussions, maybe it would be fun and insightful to spread some positive aspects that the MCU has significantly improved upon in recent efforts. So with that out of the way, here are 3 elements I feel the MCU has gotten better at over time. The first element I want to cover is one that should be inherently pretty obvious to any fan of the franchise. The villains in early MCU were, without sugarcoating it, pretty bad. Sure, you had some standouts like Loki, who ultimately works better as an anti-hero anyway, Thanos, who didn't fully become a threat until 2018's Infinity War, and even Alexander Pierce from Captain America: The Winter Soldier proved to be an intriguing foe. However, a vast majority of the villains through phases 1 through 3 were either flat out bad or fell massively short of their potential. But in phases 4 and 5, we've been given a pretty wide variety of compelling and well-developed villains, whether that be the sympathetic Wenwu from Shang-Chi or the intimidating, cruel, and downright sadistic High Evolutionary from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Marvel has definitely improved on their villain game in a post-Thanos world. Even in disappointing entries in the franchise like Love and Thunder and Quantumania, we were treated to, at the very least, compelling and memorable antagonist in Christian Bale's Gore the God Butcher.
Your sisterhood was led to slaughter.
You can't speak. Did you pray to the gods when the women you loved lay dying on the battlefield?
And Jonathan Majors' Kang the Conqueror.
No. How many worlds I've conquered? How many Avengers I've killed? And you think you can beat me? I am Kang!
One could even make the argument that the villains in phases 4 and 5 have been handled better than the heroes. Even in a film like Spider-Man No Way Home, despite it preying a little bit on our nostalgia, bringing back Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin and Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, and removing the dorky elements like Green Goblin's Power Rangers-esque costume from the Raimi films was really fun and exciting. Side note, but I love how Norman Osborn dies in the original Spider-Man film, wakes up in a completely different universe, and immediately starts ruining Tom Holland's Peter Parker's entire day. Sometimes it's fun to just watch a villain who relishes in being a villain. It's why a character like Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars works. They just love being evil, and it's really entertaining. And despite the weak screenplay, I even found Wanda in Multiverse of Madness to be a formidable and interesting villain. Even if her transition wasn't exactly handled in the smoothest of fashions, it's not often we get to see one of our heroes, a character we've rooted for and championed, going batshit crazy and turning into a near slasher-like villain. executing heroes in a surprisingly brutal fashion compared to what we've come to expect from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That being said, I firmly believe that Marvel has finally, despite turning in some less than stellar scripts as of late, has done a better job at delivering us interesting and unique villains. Hey, I see you reaching for that pitchfork again. Relax. Yes, I am fully aware that Marvel has put out some, let's just say, less than polished visual effects in a lot of their movies recently. And coming from a studio that gave us one of the best displays of VFX in the motion capture execution of Thanos, it's been disappointing to say the least. But move past the visual effects for a second, and if you compare the cinematography of the MCU now as opposed to the early phases, it's nearly night and day. For those who didn't waste thousands of dollars on a film degree or haven't looked into the technical side of filmmaking, cinematography involves the technique of how a scene is shot, including the composition, the lighting, the choice of things like cameras, lenses, and what type of angles and movements are involved in every shot. As someone who is a sucker for great cinematography, the early MCU films are a little bland, needless to say. It's been a constant complaint of the more artsy film goers since day one that Marvel films typically have very stale and uninspired cinematography. And despite as much as I enjoy a lot of Phase 1 and 2 of the MCU, I don't really disagree. However, since Phase 4, Marvel has actually improved quite a bit in this area. A lot of their films and series are starting to display more and more creativity in the cinematography department. Despite a lackluster plot, bringing in a director like Sam Raimi, director of the Evil Dead franchise as well as the original Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire, to helm a film like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was a fantastic choice. It's one of the very few MCU films that's dripping in style and creativity in the visual department. Raimi makes it a point in this film as well as all of his films to take every opportunity to shoot a scene in the most creative way possible, ditching the bland wide shot followed by two medium close-up shots that a majority of the MCU relies on. This one is a little cheating since the director has been involved since Phase 2, but James Gunn made one of the best looking MCU films with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Long and methodical tracking shots with the camera, including a one-take action sequence in the final act of the movie that is one of the best fight scenes in the MCU to date. Even a film like Black Panther: Wakanda Forever had much improved cinematography, the film opening up on a continuous handheld shot of Shuri trying to save T'Challa. In any other MCU film, it would have been a static camera with multiple cuts and probably all from the same angle. However, in Wakanda Forever, they film it in a much more unique way that emphasizes the emotion and weight of the scene. Look, I get that the really unfinished CGI and VFX in a lot of their shows and movies lately has been an eyesore and quite distracting. However, it shouldn't overshadow that the MCU has taken notice of the complaints about their films all looking the same and actually did something about it. This is another one that may go overlooked because of one of the MCU's most glaring flaws, turning everything into a comedy. One of the worst parts of the new Ant-Man and Thor films are they seemingly cannot help themselves from throwing every and any joke at the wall and seeing what sticks.
They'll be fine.
I'm not saying I need the MCU to be like the Zack Snyderverse and be all dark and edgy, but in my opinion there are two MCUs, pre-Guardians and post-Guardians. Back in 2014, Guardians of the Galaxy released and was a massive success. This led to a more comedic and often lighthearted tone for the rest of the franchise. Characters like Thor, who were never really all that comedic,
It's while Asgard falls.
You are a vain, greedy, cruel boy!
And you are an old man and a fool!
were now the first ones to crack a joke.
I choose to run toward my problems and not away from them. That's what.
That's not to say the MCU didn't still have its darker moments, but one overlooked aspect of Phases 4 and 5 is the MCU being open to and including more of a dark tone in a lot of their films and TV series. Look no further than the violence shown in Multiverse of Madness. Correct me if you disagree, but I honestly don't believe Phases 1, 2, or even 3 would have had Wanda cutting someone in half and exploding another character's head. Hell, even the previously mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 featured scenes of animal cruelty and even death, which again is something I don't think the MCU of old would have really shown. Sure, you had something like Tony being kidnapped by terrorists in Iron Man 1, but they never really showcased violence or darker elements in such vivid detail. Even if it was inconsistent with the overall comedic tone of the film, giving a character like Jane Foster terminal brain cancer that's incurable in Thor: Love and Thunder felt like a mature and darker plot point. We'd seen someone like Peter Quill's mother dying in the first Guardians film, but she was a character we weren't familiar with and had minimal screen time, serving more as a plot point for Peter, whereas giving a character we've spent 2 prior films with terminal brain cancer feels like the MCU showing they're willing to go down a darker route. Even something as small as Werewolf by Night, a short special on Disney Plus, showcased a level of violence in a more aggressive and bloody fashion than we had seen in the franchise prior to it. All of that being said, I think that Phase 4 and 5 have been overall pretty disappointing in terms of overall success. The stories seem jumbled and unfocused, and despite the promise of it all coming together in Kang Dynasties and Secret Wars, the individual projects seem futile. I don't know if the MCU will ever reach the same heights it did with Avengers Endgame back in 2019. It seems they've lost a fair amount of support. A lot of the criticisms are legit and hold real weight, but I think credit should be given where it's due. And I won't pretend there isn't elements that the franchise has improved upon with time, even if the overall quality has diminished significantly. Anyway guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to click the like button, subscribe if you want to hear more from me, and hit the little bell notification button so you get notified when I post new content. And as always, I will see you guys on the next video.